Since education is a top public issue, PR professionals at colleges and K-12 schools reach out to a broad set of publics.
Education really touches all of our publics, if you will. Our primary publics are our parents and the community's taxpayers, the business community, who are the consumers of our product, and increasingly we're finding that students really are a public that we had not engaged in a dialogue about the content or the delivery of education, and we are doing much more of that today than we ever have in the past. Voters, of course, and they're beneficiaries of our product. If our students are not capable of meeting the demands of the local workforce or the economy, then we all suffer as a result of that. And so they're definitely consumers of a public education just as much as they would be consumers of a transportation system, even though they may not drive, because goods and services are delivered to them. Internal publics are always very important, and since we're an education service agency, my probably most direct public are the 20 public schools that we serve, and so we provide direct communication and other services for them. First and foremost is to be accountable. We want to ensure that our publics recognize that we are good stewards of their resources, that we're providing the services that they expect and demand from us, and that they understand that I described earlier our services as being a public good, that they believe that they share in that belief, and that they value the education services that we and the schools we serve provide. We certainly want them to support their schools. We certainly want them to be advocates for public education. We want them to, in Michigan and in the economic environment we have, our resources are limited in our state, and we want people to express to their legislators and to others that education is a top priority for them, that education is a key to not only their children's future but their community's future. And so we're actively working on those messages on a daily basis. Research really changed my career and changed the way I do my work, and actually the way all of Kent ISD and the schools that we serve respond to their communities. I got into this field with a communications background, but it was a one-way communication background. My start was as a journalist. I had a number of journalism jobs, and then I went into state government. But at every level, our goal was to shape the message in a way that it would be better understood by the receiver. We very rarely engage the receiver in a dialogue. And when I had the opportunity to do research here at Kent ISD, it started out as the typical research that one might expect of a school district that has a resource issue. And we did a survey of the region, a representative sample of the region, a telephone survey with a well-known research firm here in Michigan, and asked, we said that we needed more special education resources, and if we were to ask you for a property tax increase, how much money would you give us? And the voters said, nothing, thank you very much. We're not very interested in that need. And certain of the demographics were really quite surprising in their response, particularly one that really raised everyone's eyebrows were the mothers of preschool children, and anyone who recognizes how schools are run, understands that mothers of preschool children are your primary audience, because at that time they want every opportunity for their child and their future that they can imagine. And so we followed that up with true almost a communication audit, but almost an audit of their priorities, of the community's priorities in education is really the best way to put it. Really extensive research that that asked people detailed questions about what did they want in their education, and where were we doing well and where were we falling short. And from that, their response, we had some of the beliefs that we had, or some of the complaints that we had heard from the business community, were reaffirmed in the broad public response, and others were somewhat surprising. But we used that research to develop and the analysis to develop a plan of action that we implemented. And following that implementation, 2 years later, the voters approved that special education millage increase by a 60-40 margin, yet we really didn't speak about special education at all during the 2 years except for the last 60 days. But we found there was a great deal of some distrust, some unrest, and some feeling that we weren't doing our job well. And since then, we've used research to guide virtually all of our action and work with all of our districts. Being at a service agency where we work with 20 school districts, we have some great opportunity, and we also have some great challenges. And the great opportunity is to bring together all of these superintendents to really make dramatic change within a region. That work created an alignment all the way across the education, from K-12 through adult education, actually responding to complaints of the business community, and then demonstrating that we were willing to change our delivery and our product to meet their needs, and inspired our business community then to go out and say, boy, you've got to be doing what Kent's doing. And so that's part of our challenge, is to create consensus among, in 20 school districts, each an individual unit of government, and 20 different communities that are being served, all of them different, urban, suburban, and rural. And we've used in every instance the research that we've been able to do to hear and then bring that information to the education community and respond to the needs expressed by business community, by voters, by parents, and now, excitingly, students, who really are a stakeholder group that we did not consider a stakeholder group. We really treated students almost as a patient to be cured or fixed, instead of a key component to the whole process of education, and asking them what's working for you, what's not, what could we do different to make it better for you. And that's what we're beginning to do now, and it's quite exciting. As a former journalist, one of the things that surprises me is that the techniques I use the very least are through the traditional media. They really are not very productive and oftentimes counterproductive in their interpretation of what it is you're doing. We more often than not have small group and congregate meetings with different constituencies and stakeholder groups to have dialogue. We find ourselves more and more using electronic media and technology in different ways, e-newsletters, and then trying to create dialogue between the recipient and the sender. And it's much more interactive and focused on particular target audiences today, and segmenting your message for their individual needs than it ever has been in the past. We certainly have websites, and well developed, and many of them we use Twitter almost as a sort of a key communicator tool, because we recruit certain groups to make them aware of our use of that, and then encourage them, to have us, to accept our tweets. And so we provide key information to certain groups of that sort. We have, because we recruit students to the Kent Career Technical Center, they are students from our local districts, but they have to make a choice to attend Kent Career Technical Center. We have a Facebook page where we, create opportunities in their own sort of technology world, if you will, to appeal to them. We recently created in conjunction with two other education service agencies in the area, Ottawa and Muskegon, a weird careers sort of search place where we're enticing kids through various electronic media to explore different careers and recognize that more hands-on or tactile learning in those areas can occur at the regional tech centers as opposed to their traditional high schools. I spoke earlier about accountability being first and foremost amongst our jobs. That really is where the traditional media come in. The traditional media in this region very much sees themselves as the watchdogs and play that role. And so we work very closely with our local media in those areas to help them understand how we're spending taxpayer dollars to provide the data and the information that they request. We survey our direct customers, those 20 public school districts, to get their satisfaction with the communication services that we're providing on their behalf, and the other, the things that we're doing to directly serve them. We have instituted since 2002 a regular schedule of community-wide surveys where we'll do a telephone survey of 600 regional residents, and we measure from year to year, but we don't do them annually. They actually have been done on 5-year intervals, so that's not an immediate source of feedback, but we ask some similar questions on those to see if we're moving the needle. And then there's a lot of qualitative evaluation that we receive in terms of satisfaction of various constituent groups that we meet with on a regular basis. We will, with various of our publics, we will hold listening sessions from time to time where we will simply go in and we'll ask them, how are we doing? What could we do better? What are we doing well? If you could change one thing, what would that be? And so we open up and establish a dialogue with certain groups to get a better idea of how they feel not only about Kent ISD but about all of their public schools. There are great opportunities. In colleges, of course, where their whole student base is organized around recruiting and providing a level of satisfaction and maintaining contact on a regular basis with alumni, that's all communication and great work for public relations professionals. In our public K-12 public schools, it's a very exciting arena. There's no 2 days are the same. You'll have days where there are a shooting near a school and you have to have a lockdown of your students while the police are searching for the suspects, which occurred just recently. You'll have student of events and event planning. You'll have community events and event planning. You'll have the dialogue that we talked about to engage your community in a discussion about, are we doing our job and what can we do to better serve that. You need to be very well versed in all of, I would say, public service delivery. It's almost an area where you need to have a public administration interest and background, and certainly an interest in government to be able to pursue this, because they're such interchangeable, they overlap so much. Education is really a top public policy issue for not just our nation, but for in each community, but for all nations across the world, as you know, we are in a knowledge-based economy.